Welcome. This is Coach Prasick, and I am a very satisfied customer of Maestro. I love my Maestro and want to talk about extending some of the capabilities of Maestro. But first, let me get a little housekeeping out of the way. Number one, I'm a customer. I do not work for Maestro or Limbic Media or anybody else. I'm retired. I love my Maestro. But I wanted to extend its functionality. And in doing that, that's a very experimental process of reverse engineering. So let me issue a few words of caution. You're welcome to try this out yourself on your own system. But if you do, you are doing so at your own risk. Okay. Um, what I strongly suggest if you do this is before you do anything, make a complete backup of your user config as well as your stages and any other backups that you can imagine. And also make a new snapshot and make a new queue. So let's go over that. I'm going to assume you know how to do it, but I want to acquaint you with how I've done it so you can kind of follow along. Okay. Um, I've got this queue running right now called Blackout. I'm going to change it to a new queue that I've created just for this experiment called Gamepad. And your groups are probably named primary, secondary, tertiary. I've renamed it. So I've renamed tertiary to movers. And you will notice that this calls upon an FX palette called FX Alpha 03, which brings me to my next topic. I'm going to go to the Control tab, and I have set up a new snapshot. Trust me, don't use your existing ones. And for purposes of this, I'm going to look at this fixture because the camera is pointed at that fixture. And you will notice that I have exactly two overridden channels right now, zoom and zoom rotation. Those are overridden right now. What we're ultimately going to do is we're going to override, for the purpose of this video, the pan and the tilt. But you don't have to do that. I'll take care of that for you. Let's go to the web page where all this is situated at. There's no software to download, no app to download. It's literally a website. If you go to this website later on, you may find it changed. You may find that it doesn't work. That's because I'm working on this. It's an experiment. So again, use at your own risk. Make backups, create new queues, create new snapshots. Okay? Trust me on that. All right, what are we looking at? When you go to this page, first of all, we can handle up to 4 devices. Now, I'm going to call them joysticks. They're called different things. Flight controllers, Xbox controllers. They're the same thing. Okay. Now, these devices have 2 outputs basically. They have what they call axis output. In other words, movement of the joystick. And they also have button outputs, and they're very different, okay? These buttons do different things, okay? Right now, we're only concerned with axis movement, so that's all I'm tracking. Trust me, I can't wait to start doing something with the buttons, but that's not the point of this video. Okay, so I'm going to look at this device, and if you'll notice when I move the joystick, this raw data, notice how when I move it left and right, the raw data is changing on index 0. Us computer people, we start at 0. We do not start at 1. Okay? The up and down movement is on index 1, which is the second channel. And that's all I'm going to concern myself with. Yes, there's this little slide on mine that, that's channel 2, and then there's this button up here that's channel 9, index 9, whatever you want to call it. But for now, we are only concerned with indexes, the top one, 0, and the one underneath it, because that represents the lateral XY or pan movement, and then the Z movement, which is the tilt. Okay. So we're capturing this raw data. So what shall we do with it? Well, okay, number one, we're going to have to connect to Maestro. So I've got my Maestro is at address 10.0.0.200. Oh, let me back up a minute. Let me back up. I forgot to bring something up. The first time you go to this website, your browser, in all likelihood, is going to say warning, 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 insecure content. You know, they're going to block it or something. You never know. I'm not going to go into how you have to allow this website, pjnet.tv, to say, look, it's okay. Why is it giving you that warning? Well, let me assure you, it's not because there's a virus or no, the reason is my website, pjnet.tv, is a secure website, HTTPS, secure website. I know it says not secure up here, but that's because I have allowed it. Okay. If I go to pjnet.tv, well, it says not secure because I've allowed it. Oh, I went to /maestro. But anyway, it's because I have allowed this to produce mixed content. The Maestro is producing it's got its own little web server. Okay. It doesn't have an SSL certificate, obviously. So you're probably going to have to go over in your settings somewhere in your browser and say, allow pjnet.tv to deliver unsecured or mixed content. So forgot to tell you about that little housekeeping. If you don't understand all that, just Google it. How do I allow content on your browser? Different browsers have different ways of doing it, but it's okay. So now that we've covered that, my Maestro is located at 10.0.0.200. Yours may be at a different address. If it is, put that different address in here and click connect. Okay, what's this? Well, now we've got some new stuff here. We've got a sensitivity setting. What's that? Well, trust me, we will come to that in just a minute. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this data right here on channel 0 that is the left and right movement of the joystick. And we're going to assign that to something. Well, what are we going to assign it to? Well, first, a snapshot. Alpha 03 is the experimental snapshot that I've done this on. What fixture? Well, we've got a bunch of fixtures here. The fixture that's in the camera is that one. And of course, when you use it, it will populate with your fixtures, not mine. And what attribute do we want to control? Well, this is the left-right movement of the joystick, so we need to assign the pan attribute. Oh, and boy, what happened? What happened? I'll tell you what happened. Notice that the pan attribute is now overridden. You can see it's on, and it's got a blue background. When I go to the overridden channels, it's included in the overridden channels. There are a total of 3 overridden channels. Okay? And of course, it's no different than if you had pressed the button yourself over here. The default value is 0, so that's why the fixture swung all the way around. Okay? So now let's take this second channel, which is the up and down movement of the joystick, and let's assign that to tilt. So we're going to use Alpha 03 is the snapshot we're manipulating. The fixture is the one in the camera. The attribute is tilt. And okay, let's go back to the Maestro. Guess what? In my overridden channels, now tilt's in there. It's no different than if you had come here and overridden it. So what can we do with it now? Well, here's what we can do. Boy, that thing's aimed way up over there. Let's tilt that thing down. And we're going to do that by doing this. We're going to move the joystick. And it's pretty darn touchy. Now, I can also move the joystick in this direction or that direction. But it's pretty darn touchy. Okay? Let me get this thing more in camera. Okay? So what are we going to do about that? Well, if you don't want it that touchy, let's turn the sensitivity down all the way. You can set it in the middle, but let's turn it down so you can really see what's happening. Now, as I move my pan, I've got it jammed all the way over, but notice it's slowing it way down like that, okay? And of course, the tilt similarly is going to go like that, slow and steady. So that's where we're at. So, what is the future? Well, three things come to mind. One is right now, the only attributes you can assign anything to is pan and tilt. You'll notice there are many other attributes that are grayed out. I think I can just add those attributes as well. I think they work about the same way. Don't know. It's going to take some experimenting. Uh, but let me know what attribute's important to you. Maybe you have a use case that I am not thinking of. The other important thing is I want to get this value. Presently, the range, I'm going to turn the sensitivity back up, folks, so we can see it incrementing and decrementing. The range is, guess what, 0 to 255. See? Now, you'll see it's 0 here. Let's go over to Maestro. That's the pan channel. Look where that override value is. Now, let's go back over here and let's change that pan value to 6 or 73. Guess what? It's 73 over here. We're just moving this thing is what we're doing. But when you have it overridden, they've got this thing output range. Okay? Well, here, let's narrow the scope of this output range to where it won't swing all the way around, right? You say, that's how to fix that. No, sir, I'm sorry. When you have overridden, this slider here has absolute control. Clearly, it's ranging, you haven't changed the range whatsoever. Okay? So, what good is this? Well, if you turn override off, now you can restrict it. But what we're doing is changing this and this only. Okay? So, I want to make this such that we can define a high and a low value. And what I will then do is map the range of the joystick into the limits that are defined here so that it won't go like, you're on a stage. You're going to pick the center point, find out what that value is. Let's say it's 73, like the screen says, and say I want it to go, plus 40 and minus 40. So I would put, 33 and 113. The low and the high. 73 is in the middle. And that way, as you move the joystick, it will never go out of bounds from that. So that's another feature I want to implement in the near future. The other thing is I want to start tapping into the buttons that are on these things. Right now, I'm not even tracking that data, but I'm already capable of tracking it. So maybe a button would be an on-off button. So you press it once and it turns on an attribute, okay? And then you press it again and it turns it off. So that would be what I would call a toggle. Or maybe we can set it up to momentary, that if you hold the button down, it'll do something, okay? And then we want to maybe address some of these sliders and so forth. But those are the things that are on my mind for the near future. But maybe you have some ideas that I haven't thought of. I would love to, one, hear from you and get your comments and opinions of what we've done thus far. Number two, I would like to know what features or what attributes or what capabilities, what ideas do you have now that we have control, so to speak, over the Maestro? There are possibilities that come to mind. Right now, I'm only working on one fixture, but what if I could say, don't only do it for that fixture, chain these other fixtures? And by the way, as you add along the chain, increment or decrement it so that maybe you, on the circumstance right now, is you have one mover on one performer. Well, what if you had four movers on that one performer? Well, if they all do exactly the same thing, they won't stay focused, depending on how far the movers are from each other, they won't actually converge on one point. So I want to make it to where when you move the joystick on the primary fixture, it will also echo that command to other fixtures and increment or decrement the command such that they all stay converged on that one point. So you can put a bunch of, that's down the road a little bit, people. But I would really love to hear from you, and I appreciate the interest that's been expressed thus far. If you want to set up a meeting, video conference, and try this out, test drive it on your own system, I'd be happy to arrange that for you. You might be asking about money. I wanted to briefly talk about that. My goal is to offer this on a donation basis. It is experimental. Uh, Maestro does not, well, it's an experiment. It's an accessory to the Maestro. Um, but if donations won't work, maybe we'll have to make it available by subscription or whatever. But I would just prefer people donate. You'd be able, that way, if you weren't able to donate, you can still use it. And of course, every time you exit this, you're going to have to set all these things back up that you see on the screen because they're gone. They're not retained. But let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining in. And again, thank you for your interest, and I'd love to hear from you.